How to quiet the noise in your head, break free from worry, and finally feel calm. Your anxiety is not your personality, it is a pattern you can break. It is 3 a.m., and you are staring at the ceiling again. Not because anything terrible happened today. Not because you received bad news or have a reason, or real reason, to be afraid. But your mind will not stop. It is running through tomorrow's conversation, replaying last week's mistake, projecting next month's catastrophe. Your chest feels faintly tight. Your jaw is clenched, you just noticed that. You have been awake for 2 hours now, trying to think your way to calm, which is a little like trying to put out a fire with more fire. You know this feeling so well it almost feels like you. But here's the thing I need you to understand from the very first page of this book, that noise in your head? It is not you. It is not your personality, your destiny, or some fundamental flaw in how you were built. It is a pattern. A learned, neurological, deeply grooved pattern, and patterns, unlike personalities, can change. That is not a motivational slogan. That is neuroscience. And by the time you finish this book, you will not just believe it. You will feel it. We are living through what many researchers now call the age of anxiety. Not metaphorically, statistically. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental health condition on Earth, affecting hundreds of millions of people across every culture, every income level, every age group. And those are only the people who have been diagnosed. For every person sitting in a therapist's office with a clinical label, there are 10 more who simply call it being a worrier, who chalk it up to their personality, who have quietly accepted that this is just how their mind works and always will. You may be one of those people. You may have been carrying this so long that you have stopped questioning whether it has to be this way. It does not. Here is something that may surprise you. The people who suffer most from anxiety are very often the most intelligent, the most empathetic, and the most self-aware people in any room. The anxious mind is a powerful mind. It notices everything. It anticipates, prepares, protects. It feels deeply and thinks in layers. Anxiety, at its origin, is not weakness. It is a survival system, brilliant, ancient, and absolutely relentless, that has simply gotten stuck in overdrive. Your nervous system learned, at some point, that the world was not quite safe. Maybe the lesson came early, in childhood. Maybe it came from a relationship, a loss, a season of relentless pressure. However it arrived, your brain absorbed that message and began working overtime to keep you protected. Every alarm bell it rings makes perfect sense to the part of you that learned to be afraid. The problem is that alarm bells were designed for lions, not deadlines. For genuine physical danger, not Sunday afternoon, not the thought of a difficult conversation next Thursday. Your brain cannot always tell the difference. And so it keeps sounding the alarm, long after the lion is gone. There is a crucial line between normal worry and anxiety that controls your life. Normal worry is useful, it helps you prepare, plan, and respond. It arrives, delivers its message, and leaves. Anxiety that has taken over does something else entirely. It moves in. It sits at the table for every meal. It whispers in your ear during the good moments, reminding you they will not last. It steals things so quietly you barely notice at first: your ability to be present with people you love, your willingness to take chances that could change your life, your capacity to feel joy without immediately bracing for it to end. If you are reading this book, anxiety has probably taken something from you. Maybe many things. And I want you to know, I know how exhausting that is. Not theoretically, I know the particular fatigue of a mind that never rests, the loneliness of fear that other people cannot see, the quiet despair of trying everything and still waking up afraid. This book exists because there is a way through, not around through. Most anxiety advice fails people for a simple reason. It treats the symptoms and ignores the system. It tells you to breathe, to think positive, to push through your fears, all of which can help, temporarily, before the anxiety simply finds another door to come back through. Real, lasting change requires understanding what anxiety actually is, what feeds it, how to reset the nervous system that drives it, and most importantly, how to address the deeper roots that keep it alive beneath the surface. That is exactly what this book does, chapter by chapter, in language that will not overwhelm you and with tools you can use today. Not someday. Today. I want to tell you what your life looks like when anxiety no longer runs it. Not a perfect life, but a quieter one. A life where you can sit with uncertainty without catastrophizing. Where you can make a mistake without it becoming evidence of your unworthiness. Where silence feels restful rather than threatening, and your first thought on waking is not what could go wrong today. That life is not a fantasy. It is where this book is taking you. Here is my promise. Every page of this book will treat your anxiety as what it truly is: human, understandable, and healable. There is nothing wrong with you. There never was. You simply learned some patterns that no longer serve you, and now you are going to learn new ones. The noise in your head is not the truth. The quiet underneath it always was. Let us find our way back to it. Chapter 1. Inside the anxious mind, why your brain keeps sounding the alarm. Picture this. It is a Tuesday morning. Your alarm goes off, and before your eyes are fully open, your mind is already running. Did I send that email yesterday? What if my boss thinks I'm falling behind? I need to call the doctor about that thing, but what if it's something serious? The kids have that thing after school. Did I confirm? What if I forgot? There's that awkward silence from a friend. Are they upset with me? I should message them. But what if that makes it worse? You have not been awake for 60 seconds and you are already exhausted. You get up. You make coffee. You try to shake it off. But the hum is already there, that low, persistent frequency underneath everything you do, like a radio that cannot quite be turned off. By mid-morning you are 3 tasks deep, 2 conversations behind, and somehow more tired than when you woke up. By evening, you are not sure what exactly drained you. Nothing catastrophic happened. It was just another day of carrying something invisible and heavy. If that sounds familiar, not just occasionally, but as your normal, then you need to understand something important. This is not a character flaw. This is not you being weak or dramatic or ungrateful. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. And once you understand how it works, you will finally be able to change it. What anxiety actually is. At its most fundamental level, anxiety is your brain's threat detection system doing its job, just doing it in the wrong place, at the wrong time, for the wrong reasons. Deep inside your brain sits a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your internal security guard, scanning your environment constantly, searching for danger. When it detects a threat, real or imagined, it triggers what you know as the fight or flight response. Adrenaline floods your body. Your heart rate climbs. Your muscles tense. Your digestion slows. Your breathing becomes shallow. In a fraction of a second, your entire physiology reorganizes itself around one single priority: survive. This system is magnificent when you need it. If a car swerves toward you, your amygdala will save your life before your conscious mind has even processed what is happening. The problem is that your amygdala cannot distinguish between a car swerving toward you and an email you have not answered, between a lion in the savannah and a difficult conversation you were dreading, between genuine danger and the idea of danger, a thought, a memory, a worst-case scenario you constructed at 2 a.m. To your amygdala, the threat is the threat. And so your body responds the same way, with the full force of the survival response, activated by something that poses no physical danger to you whatsoever. This is what neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack, a moment when your emotional brain overrides your rational brain so completely that logic becomes temporarily inaccessible. That is why, in the middle of a panic attack or a spiral of worry, being told to just calm down and think rationally is so maddeningly unhelpful. The part of your brain responsible for rational thought has been temporarily taken offline. Your body is not being irrational. It is being perfectly, exquisitely responsive to a threat signal it genuinely believes is real. The 3 loops that keep you trapped. Understanding the amygdala explains why anxiety starts. But why does it stay? Why do some people feel the alarm bell, respond, and return to baseline while others find themselves trapped in anxiety that stretches on for months, years, decades? The answer lies in 3 self-reinforcing loops that most anxious people never realize they are caught in. The first is the worry loop. It begins with a thought, often small, often ordinary. What if I said the wrong thing? What if I get sick? What if this goes wrong? A non-anxious mind acknowledges the thought and lets it pass. An anxious mind grabs it, turns it over, examines it from every angle, tries to solve it, because surely, if you think about it hard enough and long enough, you will reach certainty, and certainty will mean safety. But certainty never comes. Life does not offer it. And so the thinking continues, growing heavier and more elaborate, until what began as a passing thought has become a fully constructed disaster scenario that feels entirely real. The irony is devastating. The harder you try to think your way to peace, the further from peace you get. Worry is not a solution to anxiety. It is anxiety feeding itself. The second is the avoidance loop. When something makes you anxious, a social situation, a confrontation, a medical appointment, a phone call, avoiding it offers immediate relief. Your nervous system calms. Your breathing slows. The threat recedes. And your brain takes careful note, avoidance worked. It files that away as a successful strategy and reaches for it again next time. And the time after that. Here's what avoidance quietly does over time. It teaches your brain that the avoided thing is genuinely dangerous. Every time you flee, you confirm the threat. The world of things you can safely do and places you can safely go begins to shrink, slowly at first, then faster. What began as avoiding one difficult conversation can, over years, become an entire life organized around not feeling afraid. And the anxiety does not decrease. It grows, because it now governs more of your territory. The third is the control loop. Anxious people are often people who try very, very hard to control their environment. The logic is sound. If I can control enough variables, I can prevent the things I fear. I can guarantee safety for myself and the people I love. But control is an illusion, and chasing it is exhausting. The more tightly you grip, the more anxious you become about everything you cannot grip. Every unexpected change becomes a threat. Every moment of uncertainty becomes unbearable. The effort required to maintain the illusion of control is one of the most draining things an anxious nervous system can do, and it leaves you perpetually depleted, never truly resting, because rest would mean letting go of the wheel. How anxiety lives in your body. Anxiety is not only a mental experience. It is a whole body one. Notice, right now, where you are holding tension. Your jaw, is it clenched? Your shoulders, are they lifted slightly toward your ears? Your stomach, is there a low-grade knot sitting just below your ribs? Your chest, does your breathing feel a little shallow, a little high? These are not random. They are the physical residue of a nervous system that has been in a state of low-level activation for so long that tension has become its resting state. Your body has learned to brace. And that bracing, that permanent, unconscious readiness for something bad, is exhausting in a way that sleep alone cannot fix. This is why anxiety is not just something you think. It is something you carry. In your muscles, your posture, your gut, your breath. Healing it means working with the body, not just the mind. We will do exactly that in the chapters ahead. Your personal anxiety loop. Before you move on, take a few minutes with this exercise. You do not need a journal, a quiet moment and honest attention will do. Ask yourself, where does my anxiety usually begin? Is it a thought, a what if that arrives and will not leave? Is it a physical sensation, a tightness in the chest, a flutter of dread? Is it a situation, a particular kind of interaction, responsibility, or uncertainty? Then ask, what do I do when it starts? Do you think harder, trying to solve your way to safety? Do you withdraw, avoid, cancel? Do you reach for your phone, for food, for reassurance from someone else? Do you try to plan and prepare until the uncertainty feels managed? Whatever your honest answer is, that is your loop. The entry point and the trap in between. Knowing it is the first step to stepping out of it. You are not your loop. You are the person who can finally see it clearly enough to choose a different path. Chapter 2. The anxiety fuel, what you are doing every day that makes it worse. You set your alarm for 7, but you wake up at 6:15 anyway. Before you even reach for your phone, something is already humming inside your chest. You reach for your phone anyway. Within 4 minutes you have scrolled through 17 pieces of news, 2 arguments in a comment section, a story about someone whose life looks significantly better than yours, and a notification that requires a response you are not ready to give. You have been awake for less than 10 minutes. And your nervous system is already running at a 6 out of 10. By the time you get to work, to your desk, to your first real task of the day, you are already depleted. Not from the day itself. From the preparation for the day. From the invisible tax your habits have been quietly collecting since the moment you opened your eyes. Here's what most anxiety advice misses entirely. The techniques for calming anxiety mean very little if you spend the other 23 hours of your day actively feeding it. Anxiety is not just something that happens to you. It is something that gets fueled. And the most important thing you can do right now is learn what you are burning. The screen that never sleeps. Let us start with the most obvious fuel source, the one that almost nobody wants to hear about. Your phone is an anxiety machine. Not because it is evil, and not because technology is inherently harmful, but because of a very simple neurological reality. Your brain cannot distinguish between a threat on a screen and a threat in your immediate physical environment. When you read about a disaster, a conflict, an injustice, or someone else's crisis, your amygdala responds as though it is happening nearby. Your stress hormones rise. Your heart rate increases slightly. Your body prepares for a threat it cannot locate and therefore cannot resolve. And then you scroll to the next story. And the next. News platforms, social media algorithms, and notification systems are not designed to inform you. They are designed to hold your attention. And the most reliable way to hold a human being's attention is through threat, outrage, and comparison. Every scroll is a small dose of cortisol. Every alarming headline is a quiet signal to your nervous system that the world is dangerous. Every curated image of someone else's perfect life is a subtle suggestion that yours is not enough. Multiply that by 2 hours of daily screen exposure, and you are not managing anxiety anymore. You are manufacturing it. This is not about judgment. This is biology. Your nervous system was not built for an infinite stream of the world's worst moments delivered directly into your hands before breakfast. Nobody's was. Caffeine, sleep, and the body you are ignoring. There is a conversation that needs to happen about coffee. Caffeine is a stimulant that directly activates your sympathetic nervous system, the same system responsible for fight or flight. In moderate amounts, in a well-rested person, it sharpens focus and improves mood. In an already anxious person running on disrupted sleep, it pours fuel onto a fire that was already burning. The racing heart you feel mid-morning. The free-floating dread that arrives around 10 a.m. for no apparent reason. The jitteriness that makes your thoughts harder to settle. These are not always anxiety. Sometimes they are caffeine in a body that is already on edge. And sleep. You already know you are not getting enough of it. You probably tell yourself it is fine, that you function well on 6 hours, that you will catch up on the weekend. But your brain does not work that way. Sleep is when your nervous system resets. It is when your brain processes the emotional events of the day, files them correctly, and returns you to baseline. When you cut sleep short, you skip that processing. You wake up carrying yesterday's emotional residue on top of today's new demands. Anxiety thrives in a tired brain. A tired brain has less access to the prefrontal cortex, the rational, calming part of your mind, and more reactivity in the amygdala. In simple terms, the less you sleep, the more everything feels threatening. This is not a metaphor. This is what the research shows, clearly and consistently. The people-pleasing engine. Here is a pattern that almost every chronically anxious person recognizes the moment they see it. You say yes when you mean no. You stay quiet when you should speak. You reshape your words, your needs, your opinions to avoid making someone else uncomfortable. You leave a conversation wondering if you upset them, offended them, left them with a bad impression. You go home and replay it. You apologize preemptively, explain yourself more than necessary, and carry the emotional weight of other people's moods as though they are your responsibility. This is people-pleasing. And it is one of the most reliable anxiety engines in existence. Here is why. People-pleasing is fundamentally a survival strategy. It developed, likely early in your life, as a way to maintain safety and connection by keeping the people around you calm and satisfied. It worked, once. But what it quietly taught your nervous system is this: your authentic self is not safe to show. Your real needs are dangerous. Other people's comfort matters more than your own. Every time you abandon yourself to please someone else, your nervous system registers a small act of betrayal. The anxiety that follows is not irrational. It is the feeling of a self that keeps getting abandoned. The anger you are not allowed to feel becomes the anxiety that arrives instead. The reassurance trap. When anxiety tells you something is wrong, the most natural thing in the world is to seek confirmation that it is not. You text a friend, "Do you think I came across badly in that meeting?" You Google your symptom for the 4th time today. You ask your partner, "Are you sure everything is okay between us?" You check the log twice, then 3 times, then once more just to be certain. And for a moment, reassurance works. The anxiety quiets. You breathe. But it comes back, and it comes back slightly louder. Because here's what reassurance seeking does to an anxious brain over time. It teaches it that it cannot tolerate uncertainty on its own. Every time you outsource your sense of safety to something external, you weaken your own internal capacity to self-soothe. You become slightly more dependent on the next reassurance. The threshold of certainty you need to feel okay gets gradually higher. This is why anxious people often feel that no amount of reassurance is ever quite enough. The solution is never more certainty. The solution is learning to tolerate uncertainty without being destroyed by it. That is a skill, and you will learn it. Overthinking is a false solution. Your mind makes you a quiet promise every time anxiety spikes. Just think about it a little more and you will reach clarity. Just analyze it from one more angle and you will know what to do. Just work through every possible outcome and you will feel prepared. It is a lie. A very convincing, very persistent lie, but a lie nonetheless. Overthinking is not problem solving. It is anxiety wearing the costume of productivity. Real problem solving moves toward a decision or an action. Overthinking circles. It revisits the same ground, runs the same scenarios, asks the same questions, and arrives not at clarity but at exhaustion. The mind that will not stop analyzing is not looking for an answer. It is looking for a guarantee. And since life cannot offer guarantees, the loop continues. Indefinitely. Until something interrupts it. The audit that changes everything. Before this chapter ends, I want you to do something simple. Not dramatic, not difficult, just honest. Look at the last 24 hours of your life. How much time did you spend on screens, particularly scrolling content designed to provoke a reaction? How much caffeine did you consume, and at what time? How many hours did you sleep, and how do you actually feel for it? How many times did you say yes when something in you wanted to say no? How many times did you seek reassurance instead of sitting with uncertainty? How many hours did you spend thinking about the same problems without moving toward any action? You do not need to change everything tonight. You do not need to delete your apps, quit caffeine cold turkey, and become a morning person by Thursday. You just need to see it. Because the moment you can see what is feeding your anxiety, you stop being a passive victim of it. You become someone with a choice. And choice, for an anxious mind that has felt so long out of control, is everything. Chapter 3. Rewiring the alarm system, how to train your brain to choose calm. You are in the middle of an ordinary afternoon when it happens. No warning, no obvious trigger. One moment you are fine, sitting at your desk, standing in a queue, driving a familiar road, and the next moment something shifts. Your heart picks up speed. A wave of heat moves through your chest. Your thoughts begin to accelerate, reaching for explanations, for exits, for certainty about what is happening to you. Your breathing becomes shallow and fast, which makes the physical sensations worse, which makes the thoughts louder, which makes the breathing shallower still. Within 90 seconds you are caught in a spiral that feels entirely out of your control and shows no sign of stopping. You have tried telling yourself to calm down. It does not work. You have tried thinking your way through it. That makes it worse. You have tried ignoring it, pushing through it, gritting your teeth against it. And still it comes, again and again, visiting like an unwanted guest who has somehow got a key to your house. What nobody told you, what changes everything when you finally hear it, is this: you can interrupt that spiral. Not eventually, not after months of therapy, not once you have sorted everything out. Right now, today, within the next few minutes, using nothing but your body and your breath, you can shift your nervous system out of fight or flight and into something quieter. Something safer. Something that is, despite everything anxiety has told you, always available to you. This chapter is where we learn how. The proof that your brain can change. Before we get to the tools, you need to understand something that will make using them feel worth it rather than futile. Your brain is not fixed. For most of human history, scientists believe that the brain you were born with and the brain you developed through early childhood was largely the brain you were stuck with. Personality, tendencies, patterns of thought, these were considered hardwired, permanent, essentially unchangeable after a certain age. Then neuroscience discovered neuroplasticity, and everything shifted. Neuroplasticity is your brain's lifelong capacity to physically reorganize itself, to form new neural connections, to strengthen pathways that are used repeatedly, and to allow pathways that are abandoned to weaken over time. In plain language, every thought you think, every response you practice, every habit you repeat is literally shaping the physical structure of your brain. You are not just changing your mind. You are changing the organ. This means that an anxious brain is not a permanently anxious brain. It is a brain that has practiced anxiety, often for years, often without realizing it, and has become very good at it. The pathways that lead from trigger to panic have been walked so many times they are now wide, smooth, and automatic. But neuroplasticity tells us something extraordinary: new pathways can be built. With repetition, with patience, with the right practices, your nervous system can learn a new default. Not perfect neutrality, not the absence of all feeling, but a genuine, lasting shift in your baseline. From braced to open. From alarmed to grounded. Every technique in this chapter works because it creates new neural pathways. The more you use them, the more automatic they become. The science is not soft or speculative. It is structural. Your brain will change. The only question is what you are going to change it with. The nervous system reset, from fight or flight to rest and digest. Your autonomic nervous system has two primary modes. You have heard of the first one, fight or flight, the sympathetic state, the alarm. The second one is its counterpart, the parasympathetic state, sometimes called rest and digest. This is the mode in which your heart rate slows, your digestion resumes, your muscles release, your thoughts become clearer and less catastrophic, and your body understands, on a cellular level, that it is safe. The bridge between these two states, the most direct, accessible, always available bridge, is your breath. This is not poetry. This is anatomy. Your breath is the only function of your autonomic nervous system that is both automatic and under your conscious control. By changing how you breathe, you directly influence your vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem through your chest and abdomen and acts as the primary communication channel between your body and your brain. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you activate the vagus nerve, which signals the parasympathetic system, which begins to dial down the alarm. The brain receives the message, the body is calm. Therefore, we are safe. You do not need to believe you are safe. You just need to breathe as though you are, and your biology will begin to follow. 3 breathing techniques that work immediately. The 4-7-8 breath. This technique, rooted in ancient pranayama practice and validated by modern research, works by extending the exhale significantly longer than the inhale, which is the specific breath pattern that most powerfully activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7. Exhale completely through your mouth, making a gentle whooshing sound, for a count of 8. That is 1 cycle. Repeat it 4 times. You do not need to count perfectly. You do not need to be sitting still or in a quiet room. You just need to do it. Most people feel a measurable shift by the end of the 2nd cycle, a loosening in the chest, a slight heaviness in the shoulders, a slowing in the river of thought. That is not a placebo. That is your vagus nerve doing exactly what it was designed to do when you give it the right signal. Box breathing. This is the technique used by Navy SEALs before high-pressure operations, by surgeons before critical procedures, and by anyone who needs to access calm under conditions of extreme stress. Its simplicity is its genius. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Repeat. The equal rhythm creates a kind of internal metronome that your nervous system can organize itself around. When panic makes your thoughts fragmented and your sensations overwhelming, the rigid structure of box breathing gives your mind something concrete to follow, which interrupts the catastrophic thought loop while simultaneously calming the physiology driving it. The physiological sigh. This one requires the least effort and works the fastest. It is actually something your body does naturally during sleep, a double inhale followed by a long, slow exhale, and researchers at Stanford have recently identified it as the single most efficient breath pattern for rapidly reducing physiological arousal. Take a full inhale through your nose. At the top of that breath, before you exhale, take one more short sniff to fully inflate your lungs. Then release everything in one long, slow, complete exhale through your mouth. One cycle of this is often enough to produce a noticeable reduction in heart rate and chest tightness. 2 or 3 cycles, and you have meaningfully shifted your nervous system state. These are not techniques for someday. Do one right now, before you continue reading. Just one cycle, any of the 3. Notice what happens in your chest when you finish. That noticing, the tiny gap between the anxiety and you observing it, is where your freedom begins. The body scan, releasing what you have been carrying. Because anxiety lives in the body as much as it lives in the mind, calm has to be found there too. The body scan is a practice of moving your attention slowly through your physical self, not to fix anything, not to force relaxation, but simply to notice what is there. You start at the top of your head and move downward, your scalp, your forehead, the space behind your eyes, your jaw, your throat, your shoulders, your chest, your belly, your hands, your legs, your feet. Wherever you notice tension, you breathe into it, not metaphorically, but by directing your inhale toward that area and allowing your exhale to carry some of the holding away. What often surprises people the first time they try this is how much they discover. A jaw clenched so habitually it has stopped registering as tension. Shoulders locked somewhere near the ears, permanently braced for impact. A belly held tight, barely allowed to expand with the breath. These are not just physical sensations. They are stored emotions, stored responses, stored patterns of protection. The body scan does not solve them in a single session. But it begins the conversation between your mind and your body, a conversation anxiety has been interrupting for years. 10 minutes each morning, or 5 minutes before sleep, is enough to begin shifting your body's resting baseline from brace to open. Cognitive restructuring, working with your thoughts, not against them. When anxiety tells you a story, this is dangerous, you cannot handle this, something terrible is about to happen, fighting the thought directly rarely works. The mind does not respond well to being told it is wrong. It digs in. It produces evidence. It argues back. Cognitive restructuring is something gentler and more effective. It is the practice of examining an anxious thought the way a curious, kind friend might, rather than accepting it as truth or fighting it as an enemy. When an anxious thought arrives, try asking it 4 questions. Is this thought based on fact, or on fear? What is the most realistic outcome here, if I am truly honest? What would I tell someone I love if they brought me this exact worry? And perhaps most importantly, can I hold this uncertainty without needing to resolve it right now? You are not trying to positive think your way to safety. You are not replacing a negative thought with a forced positive one. You are simply widening the aperture of what is possible, creating enough space between the thought and your belief in it that your nervous system can breathe. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. When anxiety peaks and abstract thought becomes impossible, this technique brings you back into your body and your immediate environment, which is almost always safer than wherever your anxious mind has just taken you. Look around and name 5 things you can see. For things you can physically feel, the weight of your body in the chair, the texture of the fabric under your hands, the temperature of the air on your skin. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. 1 thing you can taste. By the time you reach the end, you are no longer in the catastrophe your mind constructed. You are here, in this room, in this body, in this moment, which is almost never as dangerous as your anxiety insisted. Building your daily calm practice. Individual techniques used in moments of crisis are valuable. But the deeper work, the neuroplasticity, the lasting shift in baseline, happens through daily practice, even on the days when you feel fine. 5 minutes of breathing in the morning before you look at your phone. A body scan before sleep. 1 moment of 5-4-3-2-1 grounding when you feel the first stirring of unease, before it becomes a wave. A walk outside, without headphones, at least 3 times a week, because movement metabolizes cortisol and nature activates the parasympathetic system in ways that no amount of indoor calm practice can fully replicate. These are not grand gestures. They are small, consistent signals to your nervous system that safety is the new normal. Sent often enough, they become the new normal. That is not a promise. That is neuroplasticity. Chapter 5. Designing a Calm Life, How to Build a Daily Existence That Anxiety Cannot Colonize. Imagine 2 people who have both worked hard on their anxiety. They have done the therapy, learned the breathing techniques, read the books. They understand their triggers. They know their loops. They have tools. And yet one of them wakes up every morning and, within 20 minutes, is already running at a 7 out of 10. The other wakes up and, most days, feels something they had almost forgotten was possible. Ease. Not because one of them is stronger, or more disciplined, or more committed to healing, but because one of them changed their tools, and the other changed their life. This is the distinction that most anxiety recovery misses entirely, and it is the one that makes the difference between managing anxiety and being genuinely free from it. You can have the best toolkit in the world. But if the life surrounding that toolkit is structurally designed to produce anxiety, if your sleep is chaotic, your days are boundaryless, your relationships are draining, your mornings are frantic, your evenings are lit by screens, then you will be fighting anxiety indefinitely. Not because you are doing it wrong, because you are trying to stay dry in the rain without ever going inside. This chapter is about going inside. This chapter is about building a life that anxiety cannot colonize, not because it keeps anxiety out, but because it leaves so little room for it to grow. The 6 pillars of a structurally calm life. The first pillar, sleep. Everything rests on this one. Not metaphorically, literally. Your emotional regulation, your stress hormone balance, your capacity for rational thought, your access to calm in difficult moments, all of it depends on the quality and consistency of your sleep in a way that no other intervention can compensate for. A single night of poor sleep increases amygdala reactivity by up to 60%. That means the part of your brain responsible for detecting threats, already overactive in an anxious mind, becomes dramatically more sensitive when you are tired. The world does not become more dangerous after a bad night. It just feels that way, neurologically and completely. Your sleep is not a luxury or a reward for a productive day. It is the foundation of your entire mental landscape. Protect it the way you would protect anything that your life depends on, because your mental life genuinely does. Set a consistent bedtime, even on weekends. Make your bedroom a room for sleeping, not for scrolling. Begin dimming your light exposure an hour before bed. Let the last hour of your day be slow and quiet and yours. You will not fix your anxiety without fixing your sleep. And fixing your sleep is one of the most powerful things you will ever do for your mind. The second pillar, movement. There is a medication that reduces cortisol, increases serotonin and dopamine, improves sleep quality, builds stress tolerance, and produces measurable reductions in anxiety symptoms within a single session. It has no side effects. It is free. It requires no prescription. It is available to you right now. It is movement. Not necessarily the gym, not necessarily running, not necessarily anything that looks like what you imagine when you hear the word exercise. A 30-minute walk. Dancing in your kitchen. Swimming, cycling, stretching, climbing stairs. Your body was built to move, and anxiety is, in significant part, a physical experience, a flood of stress hormones with nowhere to go. Movement gives them somewhere to go. It metabolizes the cortisol, burns through the adrenaline, and leaves your nervous system genuinely calmer rather than artificially suppressed. The anxious mind that feels impossible to quiet at 9 in the morning very often feels manageable at 10:15 after a walk. That is not coincidence. That is chemistry. Move your body every day, even briefly, even imperfectly. It is one of the most direct messages you can send your nervous system that you are safe. The third pillar, connection. Human beings are neurologically wired for connection in the most literal sense. The presence of a safe, trusted person, someone with whom you feel genuinely seen and not judged, activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It calms you at a biological level. This is why isolation is so devastating for anxious people, and why anxiety so often grows in the silence of keeping everything to yourself. You do not need a large social network. You do not need to be an extrovert. You need 2 or 3 people with whom you can be fully honest, in front of whom you do not have to perform okayness, with whom you can say I am struggling without bracing for the consequences. If you do not have that yet, building it is not a luxury. It is part of your treatment plan. Let one real conversation replace 10 hours of anxious solitude. Let yourself be witnessed. That witnessing is medicine. The fourth pillar, purpose. Much of what passes for anxiety is existential restlessness. A sense that your days are not quite pointing toward anything meaningful. That you are busy but not purposeful. That you are moving but not toward anything that matters. This kind of free-floating unease is not solved by breathing techniques. It is solved by direction. Purpose does not have to be grand. It does not have to be your career or your legacy or something the world will notice. It can be something small and private and entirely yours, a creative practice, a skill you are building, a community you are contributing to, a person you are showing up for consistently. Purpose gives the anxious mind something real to organize around. Without it, anxiety fills the vacuum. With it, anxiety has significantly less space to take root. The fifth pillar, boundaries. Every time you say yes when you mean no, your nervous system pays the price. Every obligation you carry that is not truly yours, every relationship you maintain at the cost of your own energy, every standard you hold yourself to that no reasonable human being could sustain, these are not just inconveniences. They are anxiety fuel. Boundaries are not walls, and they are not selfishness. They are the honest communication of what you can and cannot carry. And learning to say no clearly, kindly, without a paragraph of justification, is one of the most profound anxiety reduction strategies available to you. Start small. Say no to one thing this week that you would previously have said yes to out of guilt. Notice what happens in your body when you do. There will likely be a moment of discomfort, a flash of the old anxiety about disappointing someone. And then, underneath it, something quieter. Something that feels almost like relief. That relief is your nervous system exhaling. Let it. The sixth pillar, presence. Anxiety lives in the future. It almost never has anything to say about right now, this precise moment, this breath, this room, this instant. It is preoccupied with what might happen, what could go wrong, what you need to prevent or prepare for or protect yourself against. The antidote, practiced daily, is presence. Not the absence of thought that is not possible and not the goal, but the deliberate practice of returning your attention to the present moment, again and again, without judgment. Washing the dishes and actually feeling the warm water on your hands. Walking and actually noticing the ground beneath your feet, the air, the light. Eating and actually tasting the food. These are not trivial suggestions. They are repetitions of a new neural pathway, the pathway that leads from future catastrophizing back to here, back to now, back to the only moment that is actually real. Practice it in the small moments so it becomes available to you in the large ones. Designing your morning. Anxiety has a favorite time to attack. It is the morning. Specifically, it is the first 20 minutes after waking, when your cortisol is naturally elevated and your rational mind has not yet fully come online. This is the window in which anxiety most easily sets the tone for the entire day. And this is why your morning routine is not about productivity. It is about winning a neurological battle before it begins. Before you touch your phone, lie still for 60 seconds and take 3 slow, intentional breaths. Let your body wake up before your mind gets handed a list of demands. Drink water. Move your body, even briefly, even just stretching in the space beside your bed. Give yourself 10 minutes of quiet before any input from the outside world arrives. No news, no social media, no messages, no noise. 10 minutes. That is all. In those 10 minutes you are sending your nervous system a message it desperately needs to hear. This day belongs to you. You are in charge. You are safe. Designing your evening. Nighttime anxiety is its own particular cruelty. The day is over, the stimulation has stopped, and the mind, which had the noise of activity to distract it, suddenly has silence. And in that silence, it begins. The replaying. The worrying. The inventory of everything that went wrong and everything that might. Your evening routine is your defense. Begin reducing screen use at least an hour before bed. Not because screens are evil, but because blue light suppresses melatonin and because the content on most screens, designed to provoke engagement, activates your sympathetic nervous system at precisely the moment you need the opposite. Replace that hour with something slow. A bath, a book, a conversation, a short walk, quiet music, light stretching. Let the evening taper rather than cut off sharply. Keep a notebook beside your bed, not for journaling, but for the specific practice of writing down anything your mind is trying to hold onto before sleep. Worries, tomorrow's tasks, unresolved thoughts. Put them on the page and tell yourself, genuinely, that you will return to them in the morning. Your brain is often keeping you awake because it is afraid you will forget something important. Writing it down is a signal that it has been received. That signal is often enough to let the mind release it. Your personal anxiety emergency kit. Even in a well-designed life, anxiety will surge. A difficult phone call, an unexpected piece of news, a conflict with someone you love, a day when everything feels too loud and too much. These moments are not failures of your practice. They are human moments. And the question is not whether they will come. The question is whether you will face them prepared. Your anxiety emergency kit is a personalized list, ideally written down, somewhere you can find it when your mind is not cooperating, of the specific things that reliably help you regulate. Not things that should help in theory. Things that actually help you, in practice, when it matters. For some people it is the physiological sigh and a cold glass of water. For some it is a walk around the block without their phone. For some it is texting one specific person. For some it is a body scan, or 5 minutes in a dark quiet room, or a piece of music that reliably returns them to themselves. Build yours now, before you need it. Because the moment anxiety peaks is not the moment to start experimenting. It is the moment to reach for what you already know works. The 30-Day Calm Life Blueprint. You do not need to implement all 6 pillars tomorrow. You need to implement one thing today. In the first week, focus only on sleep. Commit to a consistent bedtime for 7 consecutive days. Make that one change and nothing else. Notice what shifts. In the second week, add movement. 3 times, any form, any duration above 20 minutes. Notice what shifts. In the third week, examine one relationship or obligation that is costing you more than it is giving you. Have one honest conversation, or make one decision about a boundary. Notice what shifts. In the fourth week, design your morning. Implement the 10-minute quiet window before outside input. Keep your phone in another room for that first hour. Notice what shifts. By the end of 30 days, you will not have eliminated anxiety. But you will have built a life that is structurally less hospitable to it. You will have given your nervous system evidence, not promises, but actual evidence that safety is the new default. And that evidence will compound. Every day you make these choices, the new pathways become stronger. Every day the old ones are walked less, they begin to fade. That is not hope. That is how brains work. The identity shift. Here is the deepest truth this chapter can offer you. Anxiety is not just a condition you manage. For many people, it has become an identity. I am an anxious person. Said so many times, believed so completely, that it has stopped feeling like a description and started feeling like a definition. But you are not an anxious person. You are a person who has experienced significant anxiety, who has carried it, been shaped by it, and is now, deliberately and courageously, laying it down. That distinction matters more than it might seem. Because the tools you use, the routines you build, the boundaries you set, all of these change your behavior. But the story you tell about who you are changes something deeper. It changes what feels possible. Begin telling a different story. Not a false one, not a forced one, but a true one. I am someone who is learning to be calm. I am someone who knows how to regulate their nervous system. I am someone who is building a life that supports their peace. Say it quietly, to yourself, especially on the hard days. It is not affirmation for its own sake. It is the beginning of becoming someone anxiety cannot fully claim. The quiet life was always yours, you just had to find your way back to it. Close your eyes for a moment before you read this final section. Just a moment. Notice your breath. Notice your shoulders. Notice whether something, however small, feels different than it did when you first opened this book. If it does, if there is even a fraction more space inside your chest, even a single thought that arrived and passed without pulling you under, then something has already begun. And beginnings, however quiet, are everything. I want to tell you what life feels like when anxiety is no longer the loudest voice in the room. Not a perfect life. Not a life without difficulty, without loss, without the ordinary heartbreaks that come for every human being who loves anything. But a life in which you are present for it. All of it. The hard moments and the beautiful ones. The uncertainty and the stillness. The ordinary Tuesday afternoon that, once, your anxious mind would have raced straight through without ever landing in, but which you now inhabit fully, quietly, as your own. That is what is waiting for you. Not someday. Not once everything is resolved and every fear is answered and every uncertainty has been made safe. Now. Imperfectly, gradually, and more completely with every single day you choose it. There are gifts that come from walking through anxiety instead of around it. They are not gifts you would have chosen. Nobody chooses this path. But they are real, and they are yours, and I do not want you to miss them. The empathy you carry, the ability to sit with someone in their worst moment without flinching, because you know what the worst moments feel like from the inside, that is rare. The self-awareness you have developed, the capacity to notice what is happening inside you and to question it rather than obey it blindly, that is something most people spend a lifetime never acquiring. The courage it takes to feel afraid and keep going anyway. The tenderness you have learned to extend to yourself, slowly, imperfectly, on the days when everything felt like too much. These are not consolation prizes. They are the marrow of a life lived close to the truth. Anxiety, walked through honestly, produces people of extraordinary depth. You are one of them. Your healing does not belong only to you. This is something that may surprise you, but it is one of the most important things I can leave you with. When you learn to regulate your nervous system, the people around you feel it. When you stop performing okayness and begin speaking honestly, you give the people in your life permission to do the same. When you set a boundary with kindness, you model what kindness to yourself actually looks like, and someone watching you, someone who needed to see it done, learns that it is possible. Your calm is contagious in the most beautiful way. Your healing creates safety for others to begin their own. You do not heal in isolation, and your healing does not stay contained to you. It ripples outward, quietly, into every relationship you carry, every room you enter, every person who is simply near you when you are at peace. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, everything. Here is the final truth I want to leave with you. You were not born anxious. You were not assembled incorrectly, or given a defective nervous system, or sent into the world already broken. You were born whole. Open, curious, present, unafraid, the way all of us arrive, before the world begins to teach us which parts of ourselves are safe to show and which parts must be hidden. Somewhere along the way, your nervous system learned to brace. It learned that danger was close, that safety was conditional, that the appropriate response to life was vigilance. It learned well. It kept you safe in the ways it knew how. But you do not need those lessons anymore. You are not that child waiting for the next difficult thing. You are here, now, with the capacity to understand what happened and the tools to respond differently. Whole is not something you become. Whole is something you return to. And you are already on your way back. The noise in your head is not the truth. It never was. It was fear, speaking in the only language it knew. It was a survival system doing its imperfect, exhausting, relentless best. It was a pattern, learned in a particular moment in a particular life, trying to protect someone who needed protecting. That pattern is not you. Underneath it, underneath all of it, quieter than the worry and older than the fear, there is something steady. Something that was there before the anxiety arrived and will remain when it is gone. You have felt it, perhaps. In the moments between the thoughts. In the exhale at the end of a long day. In the rare and precious instant when everything went still and you were simply here, simply alive, simply enough. That stillness is not something you have to earn or achieve or perfect yourself into. It is what you are, beneath the noise. It has been waiting for you, patiently, all this time. And now you know the way back to it. Go gently. Go at your own pace. And know, on the hard days, that the quiet is still there. It always was. It always will be.